guys can look through this article. You don't need to read anything. It just has a lot of like pictures of different risks that teens take. So yeah. So my topic is risk taking, and I'm mainly talking about, well, we're doing the subject of risk taking, and I'm mainly talking about teenagers and the risks that they take. So do any of you guys know a teenager like well enough to like know some of the risks that they would take? Nope. Okay. Well, what? Yeah.
I know some.
Yeah.
They would like try to act all cool and stuff, and they would lead up to like doing drugs and smoking.
Yeah. So that can be some of the risks that they take. And so they did a. Do any of you guys have an idea on why teens take risks? They look cool? Okay.
Probably because like some of their friends like have like make them have like peer pressure.
Yeah. So I'm going to share a little example with you. I have an older sister, and when she was like 17, she was driving on a road where one lane was going north and one lane was going south. And she was behind a really slow woman, and it was a hilly road, and she didn't want to go behind the slow woman anymore. And so she sped into the other lane that really has cars coming this way. And someone came up from behind the hill, and she crashed her car. And so I also want you to keep in mind that she had one of her best friends in a car behind her. And they did a survey a couple years ago, and a psychologist put a teenager in a room with a video game. And the video game's task was really simple. It was just to get to the other side of town as fast as you could. And you also had to obey stoplights. So if it was red, then you had to wait until it turned green. If it were green, you could go. If it were yellow, you could go, but if it turned red in the middle of while you're still in there, then you'd have to wait for twice as long as if you would have just waited. So it kind of shows some of the consequences of risk taking. And the teenager did it in a cool environment, which is just he was in the room alone. And he didn't take any real risks, and he accomplished it in a really fast amount of time. And then they did an adult in the room, and in the same situation, and she accomplished it really fast. And then they put the teenager back in the room, but they put him in the room with all of his friends, and he tried to take every risk and ended up getting the slowest score that you can get. And so it wasn't necessarily the score that he got, but it was more that he tried to take more risks in front of his friends. And so they think that a lot of the reason why teenagers take risk at this time is because they want to impress their peers, because they know that once you turn 18, you're going to college, and your life is going to more depend on your peers, not as much on your family. And so you're trying to break away from your parents and your family and more having to be accepted by your peers, because a lot of your success in life kind of depends on who you're friends with. And so they thought that with this, it showed more that teenagers had the same brain as the adults, and they still had the same like ideas as adults, because then they put the adults in a room with all of her friends, and she did the same thing that she did the first time and got a really good score. They just think that teenagers focus more on the reward of if you take the risk, on what could happen. So that teenager was probably focusing on, if I take all these risks and accomplish it as fast as you can, then I'll be more accepted by my peers, and things like that. And for my sister, in her driving accident, it was probably thinking, if I am able to cut this lady off, then I'm going to also get to go as fast as I want to, and my peer is more impressed by me. And so then adults usually have more of the neutrons connecting to the brain, knowing that they focus on the consequences that could happen. So they would probably more focus on, if I go in this lane, then a car could come up. And so that's kind of the base reason why they think that peers take a lot of risk, teens take a lot of risk, and they also do think that it has to do with peer pressure and just you're exposed to more things at that time. But do any of you guys have an idea of like what ages teens are typically? Like in age frame? Yeah.
Either one side or just
yeah.
They're getting their permit and their driver's license.
They had a chart actually in that magazine, and it showed that when you're 15 and 16, you take the most amount of risk, and then it starts to go down a little bit more until you get to like early 20s, and then it's kind of back to an adult. But they actually consider teenagers starting at 13 to 19, because that's when adolescents are starting. And so, do any of you guys know if, like, do you think all risks that they take are bad? Or are there necessarily some good risks? Yeah.
Some good.
Some can be.
Do you guys have, like, an example of a good risk that they could take?
I think that
Yeah, or, like, they're usually more, they have a more initiative to accomplish things, and so they will probably try to do stuff like that. And also, since they're trying to be accepted by their peers, they'll probably have a wider group of friends when they're a teenager, which gives them more of a opportunity in life. So, how do you think that they, like, think? Do you think that when he was playing that video game, that all he was thinking about was the reward of if you accomplish it fast, or do you think that they had other ideas in their mind?
America's so great.
When he had his friends with him, or no?
Well, he has his friends with him, and when he was
When he had friends with him, he was probably trying to kind of his class, not caring too much about it. But when he was alone, he was probably trying to get the best score.
I agree. Like, when he was alone, he was probably thinking more of, like, more strategizing through. When he was with his friends, he was probably more really, like, as they say, focusing on the risks. And so also another reason why they think that teens take more risk, which also has to do with the focusing on the positive thing, is because they have the frontal parts of your brain. It's like the white mesh in your brain, that's what they call it. But it isn't completely developed, and it's working on changing to a thinner layer that has more precise answers. And so most of your decision making starts in the front of your brain, and they haven't quite completely developed that yet by the time that they're like 15 and 16. But they also have, did you know that by the time that you're 6, your brain is 90% of the way done, like, connecting and having the capacity? And then by the time that you're like early 20s, it starts to, all the neutrons start to connect again, and it starts to work. Like, it was working obviously before, but it starts to, grow is the wrong word because your brain doesn't actually grow, but grow and develop more by the time that you're in early 20s. And so that part I found kind of interesting, because they also think that that is sort of part of it, because during that time frame, your brain is rewiring, remodeling, and reworking, and getting ready to develop again. And so, does anybody have any comments or questions about it?
My opinion.
No? Okay, well that's good. And so then also, do you, like, you looked at some of the risks that they take. Do you guys, like, have any opinions on any of those risks? Because I didn't think that all those risks were bad risks.
Some
Yeah.
are really stupid.
Like which ones?
Like one, I saw a picture of a girl who was fire, like she put it up to the other girl's face and the other girl was trying to eat it.
Yeah, that's, my sister's done that before, but yeah, those are not good risks. Yeah, those aren't necessarily risks, I would say, but that also shows really well how they're trying to kind of get away from their parents. And that kind of answers the question of, why aren't these children listening to me, that the parents may say when they have their teenagers. But it's not really that they're, like, disrespecting their elder, but they just want to get away from them. Yeah, and they also think that in other countries, children are thought to be a little more humble and a little bit calmer and more connected to the family life of things. But in America, we teach our children to be a little bit more independent and like going away when you're 18, more on your own. And so the teen risks are higher in America. And most alcohol and drug addictions happen in adolescence, so from 13 to 19. And I have kind of a gory fact for you guys. 1 out of every 3 teen deaths in America are from teen driving accidents, and 2 out of every 3 of those are from drunk driving. So it really shows that those percentages are a lot higher in our country. Where then I was reading an article in India where they were talking about how their children don't even drive at this age. We have a lot. Our children are a lot more open to things and have a lot more opportunities when they're this age. So that comes to the final conclusion. Here, 1 second. Do you know, Miss Owen? How much time do we have left?
It's nuclear holocaust. It's approaching.
Are you guys?
I thought that.
The end of the period.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it done? Okay. So then, looking over it, kind of. Do you guys have any like ideas of any other reasons why they could take these risks? And yeah.
Try to get invited to the parties that they usually have.
That was a good fact that I wanted someone to bring up. They also have a big self-esteem shifter during this time frame, and they're trying to kind of develop what kind of person they're going to be. And so if they can get really more offended than you and I would get if they're not invited to a party, or if they are, they could get a little bit more of a big head than you and I would get. Yeah?
They might want more attention to get popularity.
That is something. And also, some people think that being popular for teens is a good thing because it gains confidence and will gain your self-esteem level, which is always good. And so I will pass these out now, the reflection papers.